The great station of Axis Prime floated in the void between galaxies, a monument to peace built by species who had learned the cost of war. While Ambassador Thelzara stood before the assembled representatives of 47 galactic powers, her 3 eyes scanning the chamber with the patience of someone who had lived for 800 standard cycles. The congregation hall stretched vast and cathedral-like, its walls embedded with crystals that translated every language simultaneously into pure thought elixirs. People. The Krevi had built this place 3 million years ago when they first understood that the universe was too large for any single species to claim. Now she stood as a warning bell that no one wanted to hear. Honored delegates, her voice resonated through the translation matrix. I come before you not as an equal in power, for my empire has faded into wisdom, but as a keeper of memory. The younger species shifted in their seats, impatient already. The Vrin Dominion's representative, Commander Vexter, made no attempt to hide his amusement, his scaled face pulling into what passed for a smile among his kind. The Krefthi archives contain records of 17,000 species who have risen to spacefaring status in this galaxy alone. Thelzara continued, unbothered by the disrespect of those. 4,000 achieved what you would call empire status, commanding multiple systems and bending others to their will. She paused, letting the numbers sink in. Of those 4,000 empires, 312 made a specific mistake, a miscalculation that seemed small at the time. Now she had their attention. The Luminarch representative leaned forward, her crystalline form catching the ambient light. They encountered a species that appeared weak, that valued cooperation over conquest, that seemed to prioritize abstract concepts like fairness and dignity over practical concerns like territory and resources. Thelzara Senarai focused on the human delegation. Seated in the modest section, reserved for newer species ambassador, Sarah Chen sat perfectly still, her dark eyes revealing nothing. The empires I speak of saw these traits as exploitable weaknesses. Thelzara said they pushed these peaceful species, took what they wanted, demonstrated their superiority through force. Commander Vexter laughed, openly now. Honored Ancient, you waste our time with philosophy, he said, his translator rendering his contempt perfectly clear. The strong survive, and the weak serve or perish. This is the way of the universe. Thelzara turned her full attention to him. 312 empires believed exactly as you do. Commander, she said quietly, 312 empires no longer exist. The chamber fell silent. I do not speak of defeat in battle. Thelzara continued, I do not speak of territory lost or governments overthrown. I speak of complete and total extinction, of every world scoured clean, of entire species erased so thoroughly that only our archives remember they ever existed. She activated the holographic display, showing genetic maps and psychological profiles. My people have studied this pattern for millions of years. She said we call it the shattering point. The moment when a cooperative species is pushed beyond their capacity for restraint. The display showed brain scans of various species, highlighting neural patterns. Most species have limits built into their psychology. Thelzara explained predators have satiation responses. They stop hunting when fed. Territorial species have boundary recognition. They stop expanding when comfortable. She zoomed in on a human brain scan, but some species evolved differently. They developed cooperation not as a survival strategy, but as a suppression mechanism. They are not naturally peaceful. They are naturally apocalyptic. And they learn to restrain that nature because it threatened their own survival. Ambassador Chen's expression remained neutral, but her fingers tightened slightly on the armrest of her chair. Humans. Thelzara said the word carefully. Are the fourth species we have observed with this particular psychological profile. Commander Vexter stood abruptly. This is absurd. He declared humans control 12 systems. They have been in space for barely 2 centuries. Their military is a joke compared to any established power. You would have us fear them. Thelzara met his gaze with all 3 eyes. The last species to push humanity's predecessor to the shattering point controlled 400 systems. She said they had weapons that could crack planets and shields that could withstand stars. They believed themselves invincible. She changed the holographic display to show a barren sector of space. This is all that remains of them, she said. 73 dead worlds. Their sun collapsed into a black hole. Every colony, every outpost, every ship. Gone. The chamber erupted in disbelief. An argument species shouted over each other, some calling Thelzara a fearmonger, others demanding evidence. The crafty ambassador waited for silence with the patience of stone. When the noise finally subsided, she spoke again. "I have brought historical records," she said. "I have brought genetic analyses and psychological profiles. I have brought testimony from the 3 species who pushed humanity's predecessors to their breaking point and barely survived to warn others." She gestured to the human delegation. "But I suspect the best evidence sits before you. Quiet and cooperative, asking for nothing, threatening no one." Ambassador Chen finally spoke. Her voice calmed the crafty honorous with their concern. She said, "But I assure the congregation that humanity seeks only peaceful cooperation and mutual prosperity." Thelzara's expression, if it could be read by other species, showed profound sadness. "That is precisely what worries me, Ambassador Chen," she said, "because that is exactly what the others said, right up until someone pushed them too far." She turned back to the congregation. "I have completed my duty as a keeper of memory," she said. "I have warned you that humans possess a capacity for total war that exceeds anything this current galactic order has experienced. I have warned you that their restraint should not be mistaken for inability. I have warned you that there exists a line, and if you cross it, they will not stop until you are erased from existence." Thelzara began walking toward the exit. Her long robes trailing behind her. "Heed this warning or ignore it," she said, "but know that when you finally understand I spoke truth, it will already be far too late, Commander." Vexter watched her leave with disdain. "The crafty grow senile in their twilight age," he announced to the chamber. "They see threats and shadows and monsters in merchants." Many in the congregation murmured agreement. Ambassador Chen said nothing. Her hands folded peacefully in her lap, her expression pleasant and diplomatic. But Thelzara, walking through the corridors of Axis Prime, whispered a prayer to gods she no longer believed in. "Let me be wrong," she said to the empty hallway. "Let this one time. After 3 million years of observation, let me finally be wrong." The station continued its eternal orbit, indifferent to the warnings of the old or the confidence of the young, somewhere in the depths of human space. On a colony world called New Perth, families went about their lives, unaware that their peaceful existence stood on the edge of a knife hand in the council chamber. Commander Vexter began planning his next move. Certain that the ancient Krevthi had lost their grip on reality, the universe as always, prepared to teach its lessons to those who refused to learn from the mistakes of others. 6 months passed since Thelzara's warning echoed through the congregation. Hall Commander Vexter stood on the bridge of the Dominion flagship Relentless, watching the blue and green world of New Perth rotate slowly beneath him. Behind him, 300 warships of the Varin fleet held position in a perfect military formation that spoke of absolute confidence. "Status report," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered 14 species. In his career, all civilian traffic has been interdicted. His tactical officer reported the human colony is completely blockaded. No ships in or out. Vexter nodded, studying the planet with the eye of a predator. New Perth held 8 million human colonists, 3 major cities, extensive agricultural zones, and most importantly, the largest deposit of graviton crystals discovered in the last century. The Varin Dominion needed those crystals. For their new generation of faster-than-light drives, they would have them. The humans would comply or be removed. It was that simple incoming transmission from the surface. The communications officer announced Governor Maria Santos, requesting to speak with you directly. "Put her through," Vexter said. Arranging himself to project maximum dominance, the holographic display shimmered to life, showing a middle-aged human woman with gray streaks in her dark hair and worry lines around her eyes. "Commander Vexter," she said, her voice remarkably steady, "I must protest this blockade in the strongest possible terms. New Perth is a sovereign human colony operating under the protection of your legal objections bore me." Vexter interrupted. "The Varin Dominion claims this world and its resources by right of superior force. You have 48 hours to begin evacuation procedures. Governor Santos's face went pale. Evacuation. Commander, there are 8 million people here. We would need months to properly evacuate, even if we had somewhere to send them. Your logistics challenges are not my concern, Vexer said. 48 hours. Comply or face the consequences. He cut the transmission before she could respond 3 hours later. The human diplomatic ship Olive Branch emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system. Vexer allowed it to approach. Curious to see how humanity would attempt to negotiate their way out of an impossible situation. The human delegation consisted of 5 people led by Ambassador Sarah Chen. The same woman who had sat so quietly during Thelzara's warning. They came aboard relentless. Under a flag of truce and were escorted to the conference room. Chen wore a simple gray suit, her hair pulled back in a practical bun. Nothing about her suggested she commanded any real power. Commander Vexler. She began, taking her seat without being invited. We need to discuss this situation reasonably. There is nothing to discuss. Vexler replied, the Dominion has made its decision. 8 million people cannot be relocated in 48 hours. Chen said, we need time, we need resources, we need destinations. Surely you can see that even if we wanted to comply? It's physically impossible. Vexler leaned back in his command chair. I see that you are stalling, he said. You hope that if you delay long enough, your pathetic fleet will have time to arrive and make some gesture of defiance. Chen's expression remained neutral. We don't want conflict. She said, we're willing to negotiate resource-sharing agreements, joint mining operations, even relocation over a reasonable timeline. But you must give us time. Time is what I am taking from you, Vexler said. Enjoying the power dynamic, this is what happens when weak species occupy territory they cannot defend. Stronger powers take what they need. One of Chun's aides, a young man who had remained silent until now, spoke up. You're making a mistake, he said quietly. Vexler laughed. Am I? Tell me, what will humanity do? Your fleet numbers, perhaps 200 ships. Mine is 300 in this system alone, with thousands more throughout Dominion space. You cannot threaten me. You cannot stop me. You can only accept reality. Chen placed a hand on her aide's arm. Silencing him, Commander, she said, and something in her tone made Vexler pause. I am authorized to offer you significant concessions. Technology exchanges, trade agreements worth billions. Please reconsider your approach. I have reconsidered nothing, Vexler said. Standing to his full height, I have, however, decided to send your species a message about the cost of wasting Dominion time. He gestured to his tactical officer. Target the planetary capital. He commanded conventional orbital bombardment. Limited area of effect. Chen stood so quickly her chair fell backward. What are you doing? She demanded. Teaching you the consequences of irrelevance, Vexler said on the view screen. New Perth rotated peacefully. The capital city of New Hope sparkled in the sunlight. Home to 2 million humans going about their daily lives. Fire. Vexler commanded. The Relentless shuddered. As its main batteries discharged kinetic, impactors screamed down through the atmosphere at a significant fraction of light speed. Chun and her delegation watched in frozen horror as the display showed that impacts the capital city vanished in expanding spheres. A fire and destruction shockwaves rippled outward, toppling buildings dozens of kilometers away. The firestorm consumed everything, turning a living city into a crater of glass and ash in less time than it took to draw breath. 2 million humans died in 18 minutes. Chun, her face completely expressionless. Now her aides were crying, shaking. One had collapsed to his knees, but Chen stood absolutely still. Barely breathing. Vexter studied her reaction with satisfaction. Do you understand now? He asked. Do you see how powerless you are? Chen turned to look at him. Her eyes were dry, her voice steady. You have made a choice you cannot unmake. She said. Each word fell like a stone into still water. Is that a threat? Vexler asked, genuinely amused. No, Chen said. It's a statement of fact. She gathered her delegation. Helping the collapsed aide to his feet. We're leaving now, she announced. You may attempt to stop us, but I advise against it. Something in her tone gave Vexler pause, but he dismissed it. Go, he said. Run back to Earth and tell them what happens when humans forget their place. Chen walked to the door, then turned back in the old Earth language of Latin. She said, there was a phrase, Delenda est. It means must be destroyed. She held his gaze the Vrin. Dominion delenda est, she said quietly, then she left. Her delegation following in stunned silence, Vexter laughed as the door closed behind them humans and their dramatic phrases. He said to his officers, "Resume the blockade. They have 45 hours remaining." The olive branch departed the system without incident. Vexter watched it go, already planning his next moves below on New Perth. Survivors crawled from the ruins of New Hope, calling for loved ones who would never answer, and across human space. In government chambers and military command centers and civilian homes, people watched the footage of the bombardment. What Commander Vexter could not know was that he had just united humanity in a way nothing else ever had. The debates stopped, the political divisions evaporated, the philosophical discussions about military spending and defense policy ended. Every human government, from Earth to the furthest colony, received the same vote on the same resolution. It passed unanimously in every chamber, every parliament, every council, not a single dissenting voice. Total war protocol enacted. No one cheered no, one celebrated. Humanity simply began moving with terrible purpose. And in the archives of the Krefthi, ancient sensors detected the sudden shift in human communications, military deployments, and industrial output. Lixa, reviewing the data in her private chambers, closed all three eyes. They pushed them. She whispered the fools actually pushed them. She began composing messages to every species who would listen, warning them to evacuate Vrin space immediately. Most ignored heard. We'd learn soon enough the universe was about to remember why some species should never be broken. The first sign that something had changed came not from military channels, but from commercial ones. Every human trader, every human diplomat, every human scientist and tourist and merchant across the galaxy received the same message: return home immediately. No explanation, no discussion, just the command within 72 hours. Human space became a sealed territory. Trade routes that had operated for decades went silent. Research partnerships dissolved. Overnight Evan ships in mid-journey altered course, abandoning cargo and contracts to return to human-controlled systems. The Galactic Congregation demanded explanations. Ambassador Chen appeared via holographic transmission, her image projected into the main chamber. She looked different now, harder somehow, as if something soft had been burned away. Humanity withdraws from galactic affairs effective immediately. She announced all treaties are suspended, all agreements are void, all diplomatic relations are severed until further notice. The representatives erupted in protests and confusion. You cannot simply withdraw from the galactic community. The Luminarch delegate protested. We have agreements. Obligations? You have nothing. Chen interrupted the Vren. Dominion committed an act of genocide against human civilians. The congregation did nothing. Therefore, the congregation's authority over humanity is forfeit. Commander Vexter, present via his own transmission, laughed. Genocide. One eliminated a few civilians to make a point. He said, if you cannot accept the realities of power, perhaps you should remain in your tiny corner of space and stop pretending to matter. Chen turned her gaze to him. We are sending one final message to all spacefaring species, she said. Evacuate for in space. You have 48 hours. The chamber fell silent. Evacuate? Vexter repeated. You think your pathetic fleet can challenge the Dominion? We will crush you and take everything you have. 48 hours. Chen repeated, then her transmission ended. The congregation dissolved into chaos. Most species assumed humanity was bluffing, posturing to save face after their humiliation. Some, remembering Thelzara's warning, quietly began pulling their citizens and assets from Vrin territory. The crafty broadcast urgent warnings on all frequency. 48 hours past. Humanity sent no fleet, no armada emerged from hyperspace to challenge. Vrin dominance. Commander Vexter declared victory, claiming the humans had retreated in fear. Then the sensors detected something. Objects emerging from hyperspace at the edges of the Vrin Dominion. Not ships, missiles, thousands of them, each one moving at 97% of light speed. Relativistic kill vehicles, the Dominion's chief scientist reported, his voice shaking. They're targeting every major Vrin installation simultaneously Vexther stared at the tactical display in disbelief impossible. The energy requirements alone, they've been building them for decades. The scientists interrupted, hidden in deep space construction yards. Powered down until now, the first impacts arrived before countermeasures could be deployed when an object moving at near light speed hits a planet. The explosion makes nuclear weapons look like firecrackers. Vin. Colonies vanished in explosions that could be seen from neighboring systems' space stations. Shipyards, military installations all died in flashes of relativistic fire. Launched the fleet. Vexther commanded, "Find the origin points and destroy, sir." "We're detecting something else," the tactical officer reported. "Nanoswarms. Billions of them. They're already in our infrastructure on Vrin industrial worlds." The machines simply stopped working. Factories that had operated for centuries ground to a halt as microscopic machines disassembled critical components at the molecular level. Power grids failed, communication networks dissolved. Even the mighty Dominion warships found their systems degrading as the nanoswarms ate through their electronics. "How did they get these into our systems?" Vexther demanded. "Through our own supply chains." The scientist replied, "Embedded in trade goods we imported from human space over the past year." Vexther felt something he had not experienced in decades. "Fear? What else?" he asked. "What else are they doing to us?" The communications officer's hands trembled as she worked her console. "Sir, we're receiving reports of a plague outbreak on 12 Rin worlds," she said. "It's spreading through our communication networks, through our networks." Vexther repeated, "How is that possible?" "It's not biological," the scientist explained. "It's digital. A weaponized AI that's rewriting our computer systems. But it's also releasing biological agents through our own automated medical facilities." The tactical display showed the Dominion's territory lighting up with crisis markers. Colony after colony went dark. Fleets reported systems failures. Entire sectors requested emergency assistance. "This isn't war," Vexther whispered. "This is extermination." The Galactic Congregation convened an emergency session. "Humanity must be stopped." The Vor collective representative declared, "This level of destruction is unacceptable." "We tried to warn you," Thelzara said quietly. "Now you see what happens when you push them past the shattering point." Ambassador Chen's hologram appeared without being summoned. "To all spacefaring species," she began, "we advise you to evacuate Vrin space. Those who did not heed this warning should depart immediately." "We will not be responsible for collateral casualties," Ambassador Chen, the Luminarch, pleaded. "Surely we can negotiate a ceasefire." "No," Chen said flatly. "The Vrin Dominion chose to demonstrate that civilian deaths are an acceptable tool of policy. We are providing a comprehensive rebuttal to that position. You're committing genocide." Someone shouted, "We are conducting a military operation against a hostile power." Chen replied, "The Vrin may surrender at any time. Their leadership may face trial for war crimes. Their species may survive in a diminished but peaceful capacity." She paused. "Or they may continue fighting. And we will continue destroying everything they have built until nothing remains." "But memory," Vexther forced his way into the transmission. "You think you can destroy the Dominion?" He snarled, "We control 400 systems. We have 1,000,000 warships. We will bury you in bodies if we must." Chen's expression didn't change. "You controlled 400 systems." She corrected. "Current count is 263, and falling. The number was accurate in 3 weeks. The Vrin Dominion had lost over a third of its infrastructure." "How?" Vexther asked. "How are you doing this?" "You assumed we were weak because we chose peace," Chen replied. "You assumed our restraint indicated inability. You were wrong." She leaned forward. "Humans have spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing each other," she said. "We nearly destroyed our own planet 3 separate times before we reached the stars. We built weapons that could end all life on Earth and pointed them at ourselves for a century." Her voice remained calm, almost conversational. "We didn't stop building those weapons when we reached space." She continued, "We just stopped aiming them at each other. Every nightmare scenario, every doomsday device, every planet killer and civilization ender we designed to use against ourselves, we still have the blueprints. Vexter felt his blood run cold. Project Wormwood was our relativistic weapons program. Chen explained Project Nightfall was our nano-warfare initiative. Project Testament was our biological warfare division. And we have 17 more projects I haven't mentioned, she. Stood, you wanted to teach us our place in the galactic order, she said. Consider. This lesson our response. The transmission ended. The congregation sat and stunned. Silence. Alexera rose from her seat. I told you, she said to the chamber. I told you exactly what would happen. And none of you listened. She walked toward the exit. Now you will watch as the Vrin Dominion learns what 312 other empires learned before them. She paused at the door when humans shatter. They don't stop until the lesson is taught behind her. The tactical displays showed another dozen Vrin systems going darkened in human space. The weapons continued launching, relentless, and total humanity had been broken now. The galaxy would learn the price of breaking them. The Vrin High Council met in their emergency bunker, 3 kilometers beneath the surface of their homeworld supreme. Commander Vextar sat at the head of the table, no longer laughing, no longer confident around him. The remaining leadership of what had been the galaxy's third largest empire tried to comprehend their possible situation, current status. Vexter demanded. The intelligence minister brought up the holographic display with shaking hands. We have lost 62% of our territory, she reported. Colonial populations are evacuating to the core worlds, but our transport capacity is insufficient. We're leaving billions behind. Military status? Vexter asked. We've engaged human forces in 14 encounters. The fleet admiral replied, we haven't won a single engagement. They're not even sending manned ships, just drones and AI-controlled vessels. And they're outmaneuvering us at every turn. Another explosion rocked the bunker even here. Supposedly safe beneath layers of reinforced rock and shields, they could feel humanity's weapons finding their targets. We must surrender. The civilian premier said quietly. Contact the humans. Offer unconditional. I have tried. The communications minister interrupted 17 times in the past week. They won't respond. They're not even acknowledging our attempts to communicate. Vexter slammed his fist on the table. Then we fight until they're forced to negotiate. He snarled. Rally every ship. Conscript every able body. We still outnumber them 100 to 1, commander. The intelligence minister said carefully. They're not trying to defeat us in battle. They're destroying our capacity to exist as a civilization. Even if we won every military engagement from this point forward, we've already lost. The truth of her words hung in the air like poison in 6 weeks. Humanity had reduced the mighty Vrin Dominion to a fraction of its former self. Meanwhile, in the congregation hall, the elder species convened in secret session, the Crevathi, the Luminarchs. And the VR collective represented billions of years of combined civilization. They had seen empires rise and fall, had themselves been empires once, had learned through painful experience the cost of unchecked aggression. Now, they faced something none of them had anticipated. Humanity must be stopped. Vor Collective Prime declared, not because we sympathize with the Vrin, but because if this continues, it will destabilize the entire galactic order. Agreed. The Luminarch High Crystal pulsed. The question is how. Our combined fleets outnumber humanity significantly. But after witnessing what they've done to the Vrin, we enforce a ceasefire. Delzara said we position our forces between human and Vrin space and dare them to continue. And if they refuse, Vor Collective Prime Esketa Thelxara S. 3 eyes closed briefly. Then we discover whether our ancient weapons still function, she said. The decision was made. 3 elder species mobilized their war fleets for the first time in 10,000 years. Ships that had been museums were reactivated. Weapons that had been decommissioned were brought back on the ancient warriors who had retired to lives of contemplation. Returned to command bridges. The combined armada numbered 50,000 vessels, dreadnoughts the size of cities, carrier ships that could deploy entire armies, weapons platforms capable of destroying stars. They assembled at the border of human space, a wall of force that dwarfed anything the current galactic order had ever seen. Message was clear. No further. Ambassador Chen received them. Alanshi arrived in a single diplomatic shuttle. Unarmed, Yun escorted the elder species, arranged a meeting in neutral space. Aboard a crafty vessel that had carried diplomats for 1,000,000 years, Chun walked into the conference chamber, where the three most powerful beings in the galaxy waited. Ambassador Thelzara began. "We cannot allow this to continue. Cannot." Chen repeated, "You speak as if you have authority here." The Luminarch high crystal pulsed with energy. "We have 50,000 warships." It stated, "We have weapons that predate your species' existence. We have the will and capacity to enforce peace." Chen pulled out a small data tablet. "You have impressive numbers." She agreed. "But before you threaten us further, I need you to access the coordinates I'm sending you." She transmitted data to their systems, the elder species. Sensors turned to the specified locations in deep space. What they saw made even beings who had lived for eons feel fear around the Vrin home star. Humanity had positioned stellar detonators devices, capable of triggering a supernovae in the neutral zones throughout the galaxy, including the space around Axis Prime itself. Antimatter charges sat dormant, but active throughout the major hyperspace lanes. Reality anchors hummed with power. "What have you done?" Vor Collective Prime demanded. Chun's expression remained neutral. "We've positioned doomsday devices throughout the galaxy," she said calmly. "If you interfere with our operations against the Vrin, we will activate them." "You're insane. The Luminarch accused you would destroy half the galaxy." "Yes," Chen replied without hesitation. Thalexa leaned forward. "You're bluffing," she said. "You must be bluffing. No rational species would rational." Chen interrupted. "You think rationality applies here?" She stood, walking to the viewport that showed the assembled elder fleet. "The Vrin killed 2,000,000 of our civilians to make a point about power." She said, "They demonstrated that in this galaxy. The strong do as they will, and the weak suffer what they must." She turned back to face them. "We are teaching a different lesson," she continued. "We are proving that harming humanity costs more than any rational being would pay. That pushing us to our breaking point triggers consequences that exceed any possible benefit, even if it means destroying yourselves." Vor Collective Prime asked, "Especially if it means destroying ourselves?" Chen replied, "Because if we allow the precedent that genocide against human civilians is acceptable, then our species has no future anyway." The chamber fell silent. "This is the human shattering point," Thelzara said quietly once crossed. "There is no reasoning, no negotiation. Only the absolute certainty that the cost will be paid." Chen nodded. "You understand?" She said, "Then you understand why you must withdraw your fleets. And if we refuse?" The Luminarch challenged. "Then you discover whether we're bluffing," Chen said. She pulled up another display, showing real-time feeds from throughout the galaxy right now. "Those devices are on automated triggers," she explained. "If I don't input a specific code every 6 hours, they activate. If you destroy me, they activate. If you attack human space, they activate. This is madness." Vor Collective Prime said, "This is deterrence." Chen corrected, "This is humanity teaching the galaxy that we are not weak. We are restrained, and restraint is a choice we can unmake." She walked to the door. "Withdraw your fleets," she commanded. "Never interfered with human justice again. Let us finish our business with the Vrin, and these devices will be dismantled, or—" Thelzara asked. Chen paused at the threshold. "Or we learn together whether the universe continues to exist with or without our species in it," she said. Then she left. The three elder species sat in silence. Finally, Vor Collective Prime spoke. "She means it. It said every word I know." Thelzara replied. The Luminarch dimmed. "We have no choice." It pulsed. "We withdraw. Or we all die." The decision took less than an hour. 50,000 warships, the accumulated might of the galaxy's oldest civilizations, turned and departed, not because they were defeated, not because they were afraid, but because they finally understood what Thelzara had been trying to tell them. When humans shatter, the entire galaxy trembles back in his bunker. Vexthor received the news that the elder species had withdrawn. His last hope of salvation vanished. "Contact the humans again," he ordered. "Tell them we surrender unconditionally this time." "Humanity," answered. Ambassador Chen's face appeared on the screen. "Cold and implacable Supreme Commander Vexthor." She said, "You may surrender the Vryn Dominion to human authority for war crimes tribunal." Agreed, Vexler said quickly. "Anything. Just stop the attacks. The attacks will stop when justice is served." Chen replied, "Not before the transmission ended." Vexler sat back in his chair. Understanding finally coming to him, he had thought himself powerful. He had thought humanity weak. He had been wrong about everything. The Vryn Dominion, terror of the galaxy for 5,000 years, had just become humanity's first lesson to the stars, and the lesson was clear: never again would anyone mistake human peace for human weakness. The trial of the Vryn leadership lasted 3 months. Every session was broadcast across the galaxy on all frequencies. In all languages, the congregation hall had been converted into a courtroom. Humanity's flag hanging where the Vryn banner once flew. Ambassador Sarah Chen served as chief prosecutor. Though she looked 20 years older than she had at the war's beginning, the weight of billions of deaths hung on her shoulders. Visibly, Supreme Commander Vexler stood in the defendant's box. His scales dull, his bearing broken. Around him sat 43 other Vryn officials. "The architects of the new Perth bombardment, the charges are genocide and crimes against sapient beings," Chen announced to the assembled galaxy. The defendants ordered and executed the deliberate murder of 2 million unarmed civilians for the purpose of political intimidation. The evidence was overwhelming. Vexler's own communications ordering the bombardment, tactical analysis showing the attack targeted civilian centers, exclusively testimony from surviving Vryn officers who had protested the order. Defense attempted to argue military necessity, claiming New Perth was a legitimate target. Chen systematically destroyed every argument. There were no military installations in New Hope. She stated no defensive batteries, no garrison, no strategic value whatsoever. This was murder, plain and simple. The trial was meticulous, thorough, and above all, fair. Humanity gave the Vryn every right they had, denied New Perth's citizens the right to present evidence, the right to cross-examine witnesses, the right to appeal, made the verdict more damning when it came guilty on all counts. The sentencing phase brought the galaxy to silence. The court recognizes that execution would be the easier path. Chen said, "To simply eliminate you would satisfy our rage." She paused, and for a moment her composure cracked. "But we are not the monsters you tried to make us," she continued. "We are not the Dominion that casually murders millions." The sentence was life imprisonment on a human-administered world. Confined but treated with dignity, their species would survive. Diminished but alive, the Vryn Dominion itself was dissolved. 400 systems reduced to 3. Their original homeworlds and nothing more. The remaining territory was redistributed, with strict monitoring to ensure no resurgence of imperial ambition. It was harsh but not genocidal. Humanity had proven their point without becoming what they fought against. The galactic congregation reconvened in its rebuilt chambers. The balance of power had fundamentally shifted. Ambassador Chen addressed them for the first time since the war ended. "Humanity returns to galactic affairs," she announced, but on different terms than before. The representatives waited in tense silence. "We will not accept a galaxy where might makes right," Chen continued. "We will not tolerate a system where civilian populations can be threatened with impunity." She activated a holographic display showing the new human defense posture. "We have established mutual defense pact with 47 species," she said, "primarily smaller nations who fear aggression from larger powers if any of them are attacked. Humanity will respond." The implications were clear. Vor Collective representative stood. "You're establishing yourself as the galaxy's police force?" It challenged. "We're establishing consequences," Chen replied. "The elder species have lived in peace for millennia, but you've allowed younger empires to brutalize weaker neighbors without intervention." She looked directly at Thelzara. "Your warning was correct," Chen acknowledged. "We are dangerous when broken, but perhaps that danger can serve a purpose." Thelzara's 3 eyes studied the human ambassador. "You're volunteering to be the galaxy's monsters?" she asked. "So others don't have to be," Chen replied. The Luminarch pulsed thoughtfully. "In your doomsday devices, it asks what happens to those." Chen pulled up another display showing dismantlement operations. "They're being removed." She said we built them in desperation and rage, not as permanent fixtures, all of them. The Luminarch pressed Chen smiled slightly. The first smile she'd shown in months. Most of them, she said the message was clear. Humanity could rebuild them if necessary. The galaxy would have to trust that they wouldn't, unless pushed over the following months. The new order settled into place. Species that had once preyed on weaker neighbors found humanity's fleets in their way not threatening, not aggressive, but present and watchful. Small conflicts were resolved through mediation. Instead of conquest, the frequency of wars dropped dramatically in the Krevithi archives. Thelzara made her final entry on humanity, the fourth species to reach the shattering point, has become something unprecedented. She recorded they have transformed their capacity for destruction into a shield for others. She paused, considering her next words carefully. Whether this makes them saviors or tyrants remains to be seen. She continued, but the galaxy is undeniably safer with humanity standing guard. She saved the file and prepared for her final restat, 893 cycles. She had seen enough. The younger Krevithi would inherit her warning system. They would watch humanity and ensure the lesson remained learned on Earth. Sarah Chen stood before a memorial wall. 2 million names were carved into black stone, each representing a life lost at New Perth. She traced her fingers over a few names she had known personally, families who had welcomed her during a diplomatic visit years ago. We avenged you, she whispered, but I don't know if that makes it right. Young Aide approached hesitantly. Ambassador, there's a situation developing in the Outer Rim. He reported the Krell Empire is threatening the Talani colonies again. Chen closed her eyes briefly, then straightened her shoulders. Dispatch the Third Fleet, she ordered. Tell the Krell that if they fire on civilians, they'll answer to us. Yes, ma'am, the aide replied. And ma'am, the Talani are very grateful. They're calling us heroes. Chen looked back at the memorial wall. We're not heroes, she said quietly. We're just the ones willing to do what's necessary. She walked away from the monument, back to the endless work of maintaining galactic peace through the threat of overwhelming force across the galaxy. Species learned to coexist in ways they never had before, because they suddenly became enlightened, but because humanity had demonstrated the cost of cruelty in the depths of space. A few doomsday devices remained hidden, insurance against the day someone forgot the lesson when asked about them. Human officials would neither confirm nor deny. The ambiguity itself served as deterrence. Confined to their 3 systems, became a living museum, a reminder of what happened to empires that pushed too far. Their children grew up learning about the shattering, about the day they discovered that some species should never be broken. Commander Vexter, in his comfortable but confined quarters, wrote his memoirs. He titled them The Price of Arrogance. In it, he detailed every decision that led to the Dominion's fall. It became required reading at the new Galactic Military Academy, a cautionary tale taught to every officer who aspired to command. The book's final line became famous across the stars. I thought humanity's peace made them weak. Instead, their peace was the only thing keeping us safe from what they truly are. Years passed. The new generation grew up knowing humanity as protectors, not as the shattered species that had terrified their grandparents, but the elder species remembered. They taught their children about the shattering point, about the cost of pushing to foreign slowly. The galaxy became a place where strength was measured not by conquest, but by restraint, where power was proven not through domination, but through protection. Ambassador Chen, now elderly and gray, gave her final address to the congregation. When we were broken, we nearly destroyed everything, she said. We learned that our capacity for destruction must be matched by our commitment to restraint. She looked out at the assembled species. We ask the same of you, she continued, not because we're better, but because we know the alternative. Her successor, a younger diplomat who had been a child during New Perth, took her place. The torch passed to a new generation, but the lesson remained in the Krevithi archives. Updated by new keepers, a final note was added to humanity's file. They proved we were right to fear their wrath. Then they proved they could master it. Whether this peace lasts depends on whether others remember why it exists. Status: Galaxy's reluctant guardians. Former shattered species, current deterrent against tyranny. Warning level: minimal while respected. Catastrophic if provoked again recommendation. Never forget New Perth. Never forget the Vryn Dominion. Never forget that human peace is a choice, not a weakness. The entry was sealed and filed alongside the records of 312. Extinct Empires, a reminder that some species, when shattered, remake the universe in their image and, sometimes, if the galaxy is fortunate, they remake it for the better. The stars continued. Their ancient dance civilizations rose and fell as they always had. But now, when empires considered conquest, when tyrants contemplated genocide, they paused, they remembered the shattering, they remembered the price the Vryn paid, and they chose differently because humanity had taught the galaxy its most important lesson: when humans shatter, even the gods tremble, but when humans heal, even the broken can become guardians. The universe had learned both truths, and it was better for knowing them.